Welcome to Mana's Seal YouTube channel. The previous video link is on the description box or on the top right card. Volume 12. The Paladin of the Holy Kingdom. After the talks with Blue Rose ended, the diplomatic delegation from the Holy Kingdom to which Nia belonged made an early departure from the royal capital. This was because they had already seen that nobody in the kingdom was willing to aid the Holy Kingdom. Researching Jeldabia's true form would need several months' time, and also because they knew that the only one capable of beating Jeldabia was Momin. In addition, the thought of the Holy Kingdom's citizens suffering made them anxious to do something for them. They rested their horses as little as possible, sometimes even casting spells on them, and they traveled east, along the roads at speeds that normal travelers could not match. They passed the final village of the kingdom, and now they were at the buffer zone between the kingdom and the Sorcerer's kingdom. The gently swelling hills blocked the travelers' lines of sight, and they could catch the occasional glimpse of a densely packed primeval forest. It felt like a monster might leap out at them at any time. This might have originally been the kingdom's territory, but that was all. The chance of being attacked by monsters had only decreased. It was by no means gone. On terrain like this, Nia's sense of vision and smell sharpened, and she forged ahead. There's no sign of creatures waiting in ambush nearby. No tracks of large carnivores near the road either. There were many patches of bare earth exposed on the road. If they continued onwards, they would be entering territory which had formerly been controlled by the crown, whose roads seemed to have been paved. Paved roads were more convenient for travelers, but to Nia, the bare earth from just now would make it easier to spot best tracks. Nia looked at her hands. She did not like these hands. It was not that she resented the hardening of her hands from her training. It was simply distaste for her lack of talent. She might have inherited her father's keen senses, but sadly, she had not received anything from her mother. Nia's mother had been a famous paladin in her time, and she had excellent sword skills. However, as her daughter, Nia had no talent for the sword, no matter how much she practiced. Strictly speaking, the bow techniques passed down from her father meant that she could use bows skillfully even without any training. No, the fact was, Nia was fortunate just to inherit that half of her heritage. However, the skills used by the paladins which Nia so admired could only be used with melee weapons. For Nia, who wanted to become a paladin, being talented with ranged weapons was a waste. Once more, she gripped the reins tightly. She straightened her waist and adjusted her position on the saddle. She had spent a long time on horseback after leaving the royal capital, and her butt and thighs were quite sore now. She could have asked the paladins to use low-tier healing spells to get rid of the pain. However, she was a girl, and she was a little embarrassed to ask that of them. Also, it was still not yet at a level where it would affect her ability to work the reins, so that made it even more difficult to ask. I'll just apply the herbs afterwards, as usual. I need to thank Dad for that. In the past, when I said my butt hurt, he'd run over with an annoyed look on his face. Did I thank him back then? Ha. Nia forced herself to stop before her tears spilled out. Ah, Captain, I can see paved roads. We're about to enter the Sorcerer's Kingdom's domain. The dirt road suddenly turned to cobblestones halfway through its course. It felt strange. Nia looked to the sky. So, will we ride all the way to the Sorcerer's Kingdom? Or will we set up camp at night? I think we ought to be able to make it before sunset if nothing else happens. However, we might be taken for an invading force. What should we do? Let me discuss this. Remedios tugged on her reins and her horse slowed down, and then she began speaking to Gustavo. However, this ought to be the Sorcerer's Kingdom's domain from here on in, but where are their troops? There aren't any fortresses either. There were forts on the kingdom's side. Usually, there would be forts at a country's borders, but there were none here. Since the Sorcerer's Kingdom was just one city, had they concentrated all their forces into the city? Nia's gaze traveled along the paved road. The gentle slope ran between the hills. In the distance, she could see a patch of leafless winter forest. She recalled how she had gone camping in the winter with her father. That did not change, no matter where she went. The scenery here felt just like that of the Holy Kingdom. Living in the human world's a pain, huh? The words her father had casually mumbled pricked her heart like a thorn. Her father had chosen to live in a city because of her mother. If her mother was not around, he would have chosen to stay in a little village near the forest, living off the bounty of nature. When she had still been a child, she felt that living in a natural setting was a pain. However, after going on this journey, she could understand what her father had meant by his words. Was it a sign of maturity? She ought to be able to talk about different things with her parents now. Pain flashed through her heart as she thought about these things. However, it was only for a moment. That was because ahead of them, due east along the road, she could see something blurry along the snaking path that passed between the hills. Could it be a fire? Nia squinted her eyes, and then looked carefully again. There was a milky white, smoke-like object there. No, it was not smoke, but fog. And, sorry to interrupt you while you're speaking. There's something like fog ahead. So what? After Nia reported to the rear, Remedios took off her helmet. There was a puzzled look on her face. Nia Baraja. Is there anything about it that bothers you? Yes. According to this map, there are no large lakes around, yet there's a large bank of fog ahead. I'm sure, it must be an abnormal occurrence. The bank of thick milky fog seemed to be spreading wider and wider, and it looked like it would reach Nia and the others any time now. Her father had taught her about all sorts of natural phenomena, and when she pondered the situation based on that knowledge, the appearance of this fog really was quite strange. Squire Baraja. Could it be some sort of abnormal climate change? That question came from Gustavo, who had picked up on what was going on before Remedios. These abnormal climate changes referred to usually impossible phenomena occurring in a large area. For instance, there might be a place where a large-scale ritual spell gone wrong filled an area with toxic rot gases. Or a place where once a year, a desert might rage with sandstorms for a week, or perhaps a place where multicolored rain fell at certain times. In other words, he was asking if this fog was one of those mysterious occurrences. However, Nia had not gathered any information on such things. She sensed that she would probably be scolded if she answered as much, but she had no choice but to answer honestly. My sincerest apologies, but I have no information about the fog that has appeared before us. In other words, you didn't gather enough intelligence, did you? Yet another difficult question. Who could say that they had collected enough information? Captain Remedios. Deciding what to do now is more important. Their horses had come to a halt. The fog was getting thick enough that horses could not advance through it. Given what they had learned earlier, there were no cliffs near Rantel. If they advanced slowly, they ought to be able to deal with whatever came up. However, this rapidly brewing fog made them hesitant to move through it, however slowly they traveled. Nia sniffed the fog. It smelled of water vapor and nothing more. There was nothing about it that would have bothered her. However, that was exactly what bothered her. Captain, could this fog have been generated by a monster? My father once said that some monsters had the magical ability to generate fog, and they would hide in it to stalk their prey. Everyone, draw your blades. Anyone still on the road, clear off right away. This quick decision-making was a sign of Remedios' excellence in battle. Nia and the paladins moved their horses as directed and left the road, whereupon they circled up. By this time, the thick fog looked like it was going to swallow up the entire world. It was thick enough that she could barely make out her companions next to her, and visibility was zero, beyond 15 meters. Her unease boiled in her chest, and she imagined she saw wraiths in the movement of the fog's currents. It would be good if she could determine what was approaching them by sound, but she was surrounded by fully armored knights. Every move they made caused metal to scrape against metal, and it hampered Nia's sense of hearing. Under these conditions, it would be very difficult to detect anything that was closing in on them. By Nia's reckoning, the only one who could still discern objects by sound in these conditions was her father. As she realized her father's greatness once more, she desperately pricked up her ears to listen. This is a really weird fog, it doesn't get this thick even on the sea. Aren't we about to reach the Sorcerer's Kingdom city? Are there still monsters this close to the city limits? Or are these strange things par for the course because it's the Sorcerer's Kingdom? I don't know, could it be some sort of defensive spell used by the Sorcerer's Kingdom? Let's leave magic out of it, just talking about it makes my head hurt. If you see anything, let me know, and make it easy to understand. If it's a monster, we'll kill it so we can have the Sorcerer King owe us a favor when asking him to send out Momin. How about that? How do you think that will turn out? Well, they say clearing out monsters within a country's borders is the responsibility of that country. Perhaps it was because she had focused all her energies on listening intently, but she could clearly make out the contents of the conversation between the captain and Gustavo. However, as she moved away, she was no longer confident that she could hear them. What would her father do at a time like this? I can't keep relying on someone who isn't here. I need to stand on my own 2 feet. However, the fact remained that staying here would only impede her abilities. In that case, should she ask if she could be allowed to move away by herself in order to verify the situation? It would be better not to. Nia called her desire to speak up. Even if she did not do so, the captain was hardly close to her. If she asked for that and failed, there was no telling how she would be punished. It would be best to avoid causing more problems for herself. Also, it would be bad if the captain stopped trusting my guidance as a result. Nia struggled to make excuses in her heart. However, it would be very bad for her mental health if they ran into danger, and she thought, I could have handled this better. Although part of her mind thought, if we all die here, the people suffering in the Holy Kingdom will have to wait even longer for salvation. Remedios' barbs had already punched countless holes in Nia's heart, and she could not bring herself to care anymore. Just then, Nia saw something from the corner of her eye that she could not possibly miss. Amidst the dense fog, she glimpsed the murky outline of something huge coming from the Sorcerer's Kingdom. Say, can you take a look over there? Nia poked one of the mounted paladins beside her. I don't see anything. Sorry, but the fog's too thick and I can't see anything. Is something there? She heard the paladin reaching to his waist and fluidly drawing his sword, then the sound of him tightly gripping its hilt. Ah, it's nothing. I thought I saw something, but maybe I was mistaken. Really? Well, if you think there's something there, just tell us, no matter what it is. All right, I'll be counting on you when the time comes, then. After thanking him with an earnest look on her face, Nia turned back to the front. If one divided the women in the world into those who were suited for smiling and those who were not meant to smile at all, Nia would fall into the latter category. Even a word of thanks from her was better delivered with a serious expression than with a smile. Nia continued studying the fog bank intently. It was possible that only Nia could see it because it was too far away, but she was sure she had not been mistaken. Perhaps her interaction with the paladin had restored her spirits, but Nia decided to say something to the captain. However, she was still talking to Gustavo.